You've probably never heard of Alka & Co, but this is one of the mainstays of one of the busiest shopping districts in the world. 4 years ago, Alan Lee opened this store to sell the dresses his wife designs.
Fears? I have fears, certainly. Fear of speaking out. Fear of my company being connected to politics. But I must face these fears. If we don't speak out now, we'll never be able to face other fears that are possibly yet to come.
Lee's business is one of many that has been on the front line of protests that have rocked this global metropolis. He's chosen to shut it in the past, striking in support of the millions that have opposed the local government. Protests began in June over plans to change Hong Kong's extradition laws. Those would have seen people sent to the Chinese mainland to stand trial in Communist Party-controlled courts. For 6 months, thousands have been detained by police in a haze of tear gas and Molotov cocktails. But Hong Kong's economy has suffered too.
The local social incidents with intensifying violence in the past few months have kept visitors away, taken a heavy toll on consumption demand, and seriously dampened investment sentiment.
Hong Kong's economy slipped into recession within months. Third quarter GDP shrank by 3.2%. Tourist arrivals were down 50%.
We were scared because we didn't know what was going to happen, but it wasn't unsafe. We were always scared of something probably happening, and we had some friends in our hotel that had a flight today and they couldn't get home.
Both domestic and international flights have been impacted by the turmoil. Protesters have repeatedly disrupted Hong Kong's international airport, which handles about 75 million passengers per year, making it the 9th busiest in the world. One airline hit the hardest was Cathay Pacific. It became embroiled in controversy over its staff members protesting. That was after China's aviation regulator warned it could cancel Cathay's mainland flight routes unless it did something.
In addition to the effects of geopolitical and global trade tensions, we are a Hong Kong business, and like all businesses based here, we are feeling the impact of local political unrest.
The company's chairman and chief executive resigned a month after that news conference. Global companies haven't been immune from the effects either. Luxury brands like Tiffany have reported significant dips in earnings, but others have found themselves even more intimately involved. At the beginning of October, the NBA was pushed onto the front line of protests by Houston Rockets boss Daryl Morey. He tweeted support for Hong Kong's protesters. In response, the Chinese government, its broadcasters, companies, and basketball fans all lined up to condemn the entire National Basketball Association, which included cutting games from being broadcast.
Expressing their emotions is their own business, but what I want to know is how are they going to continue to do business in China? They need to take the public's opinion into consideration.
Obviously, we made clear that we were being asked to fire him by the Chinese government, by the parties we dealt with, government and business. We said there's no chance that's happening.
But some are adapting. Restaurants in Hong Kong have begun labeling themselves as yellow and blue for and against the protesters.
Things are very tense, especially at the weekend. People don't go out or eat at restaurants. It's affecting business. But those who support me have rushed here, so there are good impacts as well as bad ones.
Hong Kong's government has announced some stimulus measures to help the economy. What most analysts agree on is that the unrest needs to come to an end. But as the new year approaches, protests have already returned to the streets, and the question marks over Hong Kong's future are still as big as ever. Joel Flynn, TRT World, Hong Kong.
For more, Jan Yumul joins us from Hong Kong. Welcome to the program, Jan. Now, anti-government protests are entering a 7th month. Can you remind us how they all began?
Hi, Oscar. Thank you so much for having me. Well, it started, of course, with the murder issue back in there was a Hong Konger who murdered his girlfriend in Taiwan. So he went back to Hong Kong. And they wanted to extradite him, but Hong Kong doesn't have any extradition agreement. So the extradition bill was introduced. And that would have allowed suspects to be transferred to places where Hong Kong does not have an extradition agreement with, including China. But this did not sit well with the Hong Kong people because they're talking about, one country, two systems. There are a lot of fears about, human rights issues. So the protests have been going on, you're right, for 7 months. Actually, there are no signs whether it's going to end soon, because even until now, they are still, it's a leaderless movement, but people have been organizing themselves, flash mobs. It's really hard to tell, even if the bill has been withdrawn, So Christmas, we had protests. I was walking in Tsim Sha Tsui, where, it's usually a busy shopping district, and having grown up here in Hong Kong. So it was unusual for me. I saw some families, but you can feel that, it's a little muted, the celebrations. And I walked around Tsim Sha Tsui, the retail shops. I was surprised that around 9 o'clock, they decided to stay open, but there weren't many people. So that's how it is here right now.
Yes. Now, as you say, the extradition bill that sparked the protests was withdrawn in September. So what are the protesters demanding now?
Well, right now, to walk our audience through first, for those who are not aware, first, of course, it's the 5 demands. They always say 5 demands, not one less. So that's first the withdrawal of the extradition bill, which the Hong Kong government already did back in October. The retraction of the riot, the word riot characterization, for the protesters arrested, and the release and exoneration of the arrested protesters, and also an establishment of an independent commission inquiry into the police conduct and use of force during the protests. So, Oscar, the issue seems to have shifted now to the police, how they've been handling these protests that have been going on for 7 months. There have been allegations of police brutality. But of course, we've also seen that the protesters, this movement, it started peacefully. It's important to note that started peacefully, and it descended into vandalism, violence. So the city is actually divided. Whether some of the people are saying, "Oh, it's because of the government inaction." So this is, this keeps continuing.
Yes.
And some of them have derived already, I can say the support for the protesters isn't that strong as it was in the beginning. So it's still pretty much divided.
Okay, Jan Yumul, we'll have to leave it there, but we'll see what 2020 brings for the Hong Kong protests. Thank you so much for that update.